The album came out in 2012. I think it was 2012, and it took a few years to do the whole thing. In the beginning, I went to the studio with Jason. Jason Molinax is a great drummer, a really talented musician that I was playing with at the time. We were doing live gigs. Anyway, we went in, did a couple long days, got the drums down, and got a lot of guitar work and stuff down. And then, I was really kind of ambitious with this record, even though I was broke. I really wanted it to be layered and have like a nice produced sound. And, some of my favorite records are really lush or whatever. And I was kind of ambitious in that way with this. But it did take, it took a couple of years. I think we started the recording process in like 2010. And, I would just have to get the bread together, add guitars, maybe a couple of weeks would pass and I'd have money again. And then I would go in and add some more guitars. A couple of weeks would pass. I would go in and add, you know, shakers or hand claps or what have you. So the whole thing was I gotta say it was a bit heartbreaking, making the record because, you really want everything to just happen quickly. But at the end of the day, I think I was really happy that it didn't happen super fast because it gave the songs time to really realize themselves, if that makes any sense. I think if I'd had the budget to go in and do it all at once, it wouldn't have been as layered, and I don't think it would be the same. So it was really, you know, as much as it troubled me at the time, I think it turned out better this way.
Unseen chains bind man's soul.
Money is a cautionary tale. It's probably, I guess, if I had to sum it up, it's about prioritizing material wealth over spiritual well-being, if that makes sense. Just money and its ill effects, and spiritually, I think the track has a kind of a tent revival feel, which is cool. It's got like the hand claps, tambourines. I really wanted to have like a gospel-y kind of thing going on, if that makes sense. At the time, I was really into upright bass. I was really starting to gig with upright bassists just around then, and the main riff, the doom chicka doom chicka doom chicka doom, that was me kind of trying to play upright bass on the guitar. So that's where that came from, and I think it turned out really well. The other thing was hand claps. We had there's hand clapping going on in the song, and an example of having to layer everything, like I was saying, is I brought in some friends of mine, Bo and Street. They came in and did hand claps with me. I was going to just track myself doing the hand claps, and then layer myself. But I thought that's not going to sound the same as a group of people clapping their hands together like you would have in a revival or something like that. So I brought them in, and we spent maybe a couple hours doing hand claps. The deal, is a breakup song. I can't. There's not much really to explain there. I mean, it's all there in the lyrics, and I'll let you know that it was autobiographical anyway. Just about being done wrong, I guess. And it's probably the only really lighthearted moment on the album, which is good. I was like conflicted about whether I would want to include that on the record, but I think it's nice to have a little spot of comic relief, if you will. the only other thing I'll mention, I guess, is that that was the first time that I played upright bass, and the only time to this point that I played upright bass on a recording. So, I did the best I could. Looking back, like, I think I'm capable of better now, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do bass on a record again sometime. I have no idea.
It's a 7 a.m. hell with cigarettes in bed.
7 a.m. Hell is a good example of a song materializing in its own time. The lyrics started in I think in 2002. I was living in San Diego, and every morning at like 7 o'clock, I lived in the Gaslamp Quarter. It's like the right downtown, and every morning around 7 o'clock, fire engines would just tear through the downtown and wake me up. And so I wrote in my notebook, "It's a 7 a.m. hell here," and then some of the other lyrics, I guess. So years later, when I was looking for something to do with, just trying to write another song, looking for inspiration, I went back through those old notebooks and I found that, and I thought it was pretty good, to be able to try to do something. So I started to write, and I guess some of the lyrics were kind of maybe about being in San Diego in a way. Although I think it's more, you know, I don't really want to say what the song is about, because I think that the lyrics kind of paint a really nice picture. It's more of a mood than anything, and I think the song's got a bit of mystery to it, so I like to leave that intact. This I think this is the first time on the album. This song is the first point in the album when Johnny Lawless shows up on bass, and Johnny did a fantastic job on the upright bass, and then also Dave Hadley. Dave Hadley came and played steel, which just I was absolutely floored. Turned out really well.
My faith is shaken by one thing. That thing is vengeance. Is it a sin to take lives of those who call me or kill them? Can I ask you, brother, is it really a sin? Is it really a sin? Is it really a sin?
I would say that a recurring theme in my work is spiritual conflict. So this is another good example of that. It's a song about how someone who is otherwise good and righteous can be derailed by injustice, and I think personally that around the time, this is another example of a song kind of coming together in its own time. I think the lyrics started because of a journal entry I made about around the time my daughter was born. That was in 2006, and this album didn't come out till much later. But I felt, if anyone were to harm her or bring her harm, then I would be pushed to the point of past my own morals. I just imagined the idea of someone hurting someone that I love so much that I would be moved to revenge. This is a sad song. I'm not sure what else I can really say about it, other than, again, it's all right there in the words to the song. Johnny Lawless did a really excellent job on the bass with this, and I think the only other thing I would mention is that it took me several takes to get the vocals for this correct, and I remember being kind of at the towards the end of the album, really towards the end when I was like getting all the final vocal takes, and stuff like that. You know, all the music was already layered and everything. And I remember having a real heartbreaker of a session when I went in and I did about 4 hours worth of work on this song alone. Got home and listened to the playback and just didn't like it. I didn't think I did a good job. You know, I was just, and like I said, at that time I had no bread, so I went in and, you know, to know that I had just cooked 4 hours in the studio for nothing really kind of broke my heart. But it was good. I went in and I got it. Eventually I went back and I got the takes that I needed. It's a sad song.